Hey, what's going on, and Happy New Year to everybody. It's Alex Driskell again from Sweet Georgia Sports coming at you today with Atlanta Braves Toma Talk Episode 9. It's the HotLanta's stove because even though it's like 20 degrees outside, it's windy, it's freezing, it's miserable, Atlanta's hot stove for the Braves is definitely heating up because if you haven't paid attention, if you've been celebrating the Georgia Bulldogs' victory over Oklahoma the past couple of days, Dan O'Dowd of MLB Network came out and said that, hey, the Braves are interested in Christian Yelich and JT Realmuto from the Miami Marlins as the Marlins continue their fire sale under new ownership, which is led by Derek Jeter. And he came out and said the other day that a projected kind of like trade, a potential trade that could happen and what it would look like between Miami and Atlanta would look like this. Miami would get from Atlanta catcher, Tyler Flowers, left-handed pitcher Sean Newcombe, left-handed pitcher, number 2 overall Braves prospect, and the number 1 overall left-handed pitching prospect in minor league baseball, Coby Allard, the Braves' 9th overall prospect, and 10th best overall third base prospect, Austin Riley. So that's going to be a very, very steep price. But in return, the Braves would get, of course, Christian Yelich, who plays outfield, catcher JT Realmuto, utility man and former Braves great and former Braves fan favorite Martin Prado, right-handed pitcher Brad Ziegler, and left-handed pitcher Wei Yin Chen. And so with that being said, I'm going to break down kind of the key components. And the key components for me in this deal are Sean Newcombe, Coby Allard, Austin Riley, Christian Yelich, and JT Realmuto. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be breaking down their averages, like their home runs, their ERAs, their win and loss record, strikeout rate, all that good stuff. I'll be breaking that down over the course of their careers. And so without further ado, let's get going ahead with Christian Yelich's averages since his debut season. And when I say debut season, that means when his rookie status is gone. That means when he surpasses 130 major league at-bats. And so that season was 2013. So these are Christian Yelich's averages since 2013. His slash line, which is your batting average, your on-base percentage, and your OPS, which is your on-base plus slugging. Since 2013, his average slash line has been 290, 369, 796. So that is a very, very solid slash line. He gets on base at an incredible rate. He's a good contact hitter, good guy that can hit for a solid average, guy that can hit in the top of the order. He's averaged 11.8 home runs, so you can round that up to 12. He isn't that much of a power hitter, and you also have to consider that Miami Stadium is definitely a pitcher's park there in Marlins Park in Miami. It is a very, very big park. He's averaging 58.6 RBI, so you can round that up to 59. You kind of have to give and take with that too because of the offense that he's been around. He really hasn't had that much of an offense. I mean, he's been probably the top contributor besides Giancarlo Stanton, who's with the Yankees, and then Marcell Ozuna, who was later traded to the Cardinals this year as well. So moving on from that, his isolated power index, or his ISO, is at 137. So, I mean, it could use some work, but that certainly isn't the player Christian Yelich is. His weighted runs created plus, his average for that is 120.6, so you can round that up to 121, and that means he is creating runs at a 21% rate, better than the league average because the league average is set at 100 for weighted runs created plus. His strikeout rate is 20.9, so you can basically round that up to 21, and so he's striking out at a 21% rate, and he's walking at a 10.6 rate, so I mean, his over-under for walk percentage of the time is 11. So, I mean, he certainly can get on base. He's an on-base machine, and he certainly can hit for average. So, he could possibly be a guy that hits first or second. If we get Christian Yelich, I'd rather hit him second. That way, we kind of take the pressure off of Ozzy, and we can put Ozzy more down in the order around 6th or 7th. That way to take some pressure off of him and let him develop. Defensively for Christian Yelich, he's averaging 4 defensive runs saved per year. So with that, I mean, it's kind of a flawed stat in the outfield, especially when the game of baseball is played in the infield. But that all could change. We could see a shift in that as guys start focusing more on their launch angles. But we also had to take in consideration, again, Marlins Park is a very, very big outfield. He has a lot of ground to cover. His fielding percentage, he's averaging a .992 fielding percentage. It could be a bit better, but it's right above average. His defensive rating, he's averaging a -2.2 defensive rating since 2013. So, I mean, it could be better, but again, taking into account the park he plays in and the guys that were to his left and right, because he did play left, he did play center, but when he played center, he had Marcell Ozuna to his left, and then Giancarlo Stanton to his right, and then when they transitioned him to left field, Marcell Ozuna was in center, and Stanton was in right, of course. So, I mean, those guys are pretty good fielders. His WAR, which is his wins above replacement, he's averaging 3.4 wins above replacement. So, and with Fangraphs, who are providing these stats, where I looked up the stats, averaged them all out, they say that anywhere between a 3 and a 4 WAR is a solid, good starter. So if we do trade for Christian Yelich, if we do get him, he will be a very, very solid starter in the outfield for the Braves, presumably in left field. So moving on from Christian Yelich, get into the catching guy, JT Realmuto. His averages since his debut season, which was in 2014. His average slash line is 280, 321, and 750. He could use some work in the on-base department, but that certainly isn't the guy he is. He's averaging 12.6 home runs per game. He's averaging 53.3 RBIs per year. His isolated power index is at 148, so it's a bit above average, and his weighted runs created plus is at 101. So he's right at league average in creating runs, but also, again, you have to kind of consider the offense that he was in and the guys around him. He's striking out at a 17.2% rate, and he's walking at only a 5% rate, basically. It's 5.1, but he's walking at a 5% rate, basically. So he really could use some patience in a lineup. So, I mean, he definitely could use some help in the on-base department, again, seeing the ball, just taking his walks. But, again, he's more of a power guy. His defensive run saved as a catcher is negative. On average, since 2014 as a catcher, is -1.3. Really, as a catcher, you're not really saving a lot of runs. It's just more based on assists and everything. His pass balls, which means which is basically like a error for a catcher on a pitch. He's averaging 9.3 pass balls per year. That's solid. His defensive rating, his average defensive rating since 2014 is a 10.5. So he is a fantastic defender, and he has gotten better in each category, offensively and defensively, every year. And his WAR is right at 3 again. So he would be a very solid starting option for the Braves if indeed we get JT Realmuto. So moving on from the Marlins guys, let's get into the guys from the Braves. Starting off with Sean Newcombe, and I'm going to do his averages since he became a Brave in the system. He started out in 2016 with the Mississippi Braves, then, of course, in 2017, this past season, he started out with AAA Gwinnett and then got caught up early in the summer. So since becoming a Brave in 2016, he's averaging 5 wins a year and averaging 6.3 losses a year. So he's around a 500 pitcher. His ERA, his average ERA is a 3.72. He's averaging 99.07 innings pitched, so around 99 innings pitched. His WHIP, which is his wins and hits above innings pitched, is 1.41. When I look at a pitcher, I would like to have it a bit under 1.35, but 1.41 is still, it's average. It could use some work. His average strikeout, he's averaging 111.3 strikeouts per year and averaging 53.6 walks per year. His striking out guys at a 26.3 rate, and he's walking guys at a 12.5 rate. And his FIP, which is fielding independent of pitching, which is a better way to look at an ERA. It's kind of like a more true ERA, is at 3.5. 1.53, and then his WAR for this year was 1.3. So he's a bit below average, but that was his rookie year, and there's always room for improvement with Sean Newcombe, especially because he has a very, very high upside. If he can get his command and his control together, he can be a very, very solid pitcher. So moving on from Sean Newcombe, let's get into Coby Allard. Coby Allard, since his first full season in 2016, he was drafted in 2015. Since his first full season in 2016, he's averaging 5.3 wins and averaging 4.6 losses. So around, a 500 pitcher. His ERA, though, is at a 2.74. He's averaging around 79 innings pitched. He had a stress reaction in his back his first year. Coming out of the draft, he had to have surgery, so he was kind of like on an innings limit. His whip is astounding at 1.11. He's averaging 74.6 strikeouts per year and 23.3 walks per year. He's striking guys out at a 25.9 rate, so you can basically round that up and say that he's striking out guys at a 26% rate. And he's walking guys at a 6.7 rate, so you can basically round that up and say, hey, he's walking guys 7% of the time. His FIP, which is again his truer ERA, is at 2.93, and his WAR, I couldn't find it because a lot of the sites don't calculate WAR for minor leagues, so he really doesn't have a WAR, but just based on his upside, based on his scouting reports, guys are saying, hey, this is the best left-handed pitcher in all of minor league baseball right now. So keep an eye on Coby Allard as he progresses. He could start in AAA this year. We'll have to see. But moving on from Coby Allard, we'll get into Austin Riley. And since his first full season, which was also 2016, since he was drafted in 2015, his average slash line is 283, 346, and 859 OPS, which is really, really good. He's averaging 11.5 home runs per year, so basically 12 home runs per year. RBI-wise, he's averaging 42.7 RBIs per year. His isolated power index is just off the charts at 230. He's a big, big kid. He's a big power hitter. And his weighted runs created plus is at 133. So his league out, whichever league he is, he's creating 33% better than his league. He's striking out at a 25.5% rate, so he could knock down the strikeouts a bit, and he's walking at just a 7.3 rate. His fielding percentage as a third baseman isn't anything to write home about, as it is at just 924. But with Austin Riley, when he was in high school, he was focusing as being a pitcher only, and he was still and he was expected to be drafted as a pitcher. But the Braves were like, hey, we see your upside better as a third baseman. And so he kind of had to transition back into third. And so since 2016, he's only averaging a 924 fielding percentage. So what all this means, I mean, with this trade, we are going to have to pay a very, very steep price. If Alex Anthopoulos, the new GM, wants to do this, we're going to see how he covers the top prospects. I mean, with Coby Allard, you're talking about the number one left-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball. So, I mean, we'll see how things play out. With Sean Newcombe, we're departing with a guy that had I'll go out on a limb and say it was a solid rookie season. I mean, there's always room for improvement. And then with Austin Riley, I mean, with this year, I'll get into it later in later videos when I come out with my top prospects list for the Braves minor league hitters and pitchers, and then just players. Austin Riley is, I mean, he's almost the future besides Ronald Acuna. He's the future for Braves position players. I mean, this guy is a monster. I mean, he's a very, very good power hitter. He does need to develop as a better fielder, but he is a monster power hitter. I've seen guys compare him to David Wright, who has just been basically the equivalent of Chipper Jones to the Mets. And I've seen some guys compare him to Troy Glaus. And if you don't remember who Troy Glaus is, he only played 1 year in Atlanta, and that was 2010. That was on the tail end of his career. But he was an Angels star back in the day, and he played first and third. And he was a very, very solid player. And so a lot of guys are saying a more realistic comparison for Austin Riley would be Troy Glaus, and Troy Glaus was a master by all means. He was a very, very good power hitter. And so, I mean, with this trade, yeah, you'll get a lot. You'll get a lot of immediate need. We need to move Nick Markakis' contract. As difficult as that sounds out of my mouth, he's on the wrong side of 30. This is his last year, so I mean, we could keep him around, and then his money comes off the books. But we could trade him and get something in return. But for me, I would just focus in on Yelich because catchers, it's an up and down thing for them. I mean, of course, some of these guys are the most injured guys in baseball because of foul tips and whatnot. And even though JT Realmuto has steadily progressed each year since 2014 and 2015, he to me, I think he can stay in Miami. I wouldn't want to pay the price that the Marlins might be commanding for Realmuto and Yelich. I would just focus in on Yelich. That way we can move him into left, and maybe Freddie Freeman finally has some protection in the lineup, and we get a good on-base guy. So, I mean, personally, I'd love to have Realmuto, but I think realistically, the Braves should just focus in on Yelich. And realistically, do I see this deal getting done? Maybe not so much, but it's fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff. It's fun to imagine. It's fun to go through all these trade scenarios, and it's fun to see Atlanta on the hot stove. So with that being said, I've been Alex Driskell from Sweet Georgia Sports. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Share, subscribe with all of the Braves fans that you know, friends, family, whatnot. And give me your thoughts. Feel free to comment either on Instagram, Twitter. We're on there on both of those social media platforms, and on YouTube as well. Feel free to comment. Just be nice. So with that being said, I've been Alex Driskell saying God bless and chop on, Atlanta.